Hey, Erin, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Did you have a
Good.
good
I
day?
I did. I was so confused. I watched your live from earlier, and someone else popped up, and I'm like, this isn't making sense. And then I was like, oh, give it a moment, and then it turned to your live. So happy.
Uh-oh. Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. I thought
Okay, you're good.
that's okay. What'd you say?
Nothing. What time is it over there for you?
It's 7 a.m.
Okay, so you're like a full 12 hours difference.
Yes, exactly. So right now, 12 hours. We don't, Asia doesn't do time change, so it depends on the time of year.
Okay.
But right now, yeah, 12 hours
Oh,
from Central.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank
yeah.
you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So, lots of people are popping on. So, why don't we just get started with, if you don't mind, just introducing yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Erin. I am a registered dietitian, which means I went to school for nutrition and then school after that through like grad school and an internship to become a dietitian. I also have celiac. I was diagnosed when I was about 16 years old. It's
Hmm.
definitely been a journey through college, through living in a sorority house and grad school. A lot of things, but it's been a great experience. And now I help people with celiac disease, so I work with people one on one. I think a lot of us with celiac aren't referred to a dietitian or someone that like understands diet, which is crazy to me because diet is the treatment for this condition. Um,
Yeah.
Same with other like autoimmune disorders and like IBD and IBS. Like nutrition is the fundamental part of it, and so many doctors are just missing that opportunity. So people don't get to work with people like me, or just get the help and the care that they really deserve, which we're hoping to change soon. So yeah,
Yes, I love that. And I think that's so true because there are very few people that I talk to that get diagnosed and were given what I would say would be like appropriate resources to help them.
yeah, yeah,
It's kind
yeah.
of
It's a bummer.
like Google it, here, eat gluten free, or I mean, just like bare bones of what they're
Yeah.
told and kind of sent on their way.
Yep. I've gotten a lot of people that say like their doctor tells them that cross contamination isn't a big issue, or they tell them that, you could have gluten sometimes. I think even doctors are using old methods. They're not using, the right like treatment methods. They don't know like where's the best place to get gluten free products or any of those like day in the life things. They don't understand. So yeah, it's such a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing because it is rare to find people that then you can relate with so much, right? So, and you're somebody who's been living with it for much longer than, I mean, not that it really matters, but you also have the shared experience of living through your teenage years, college, like some
Yeah.
of the tougher times. Like I talked to Haley last night of the sociable celiac, and she got diagnosed in college
Yeah.
and we were talking about that because I was just asking like what advice would you give to someone in that situation, because I think that's the time in your life that you most want to not stand out. You don't want to be
Yeah.
different. You don't want to call attention to yourself for something that you might perceive as negative at the time, like restrictive, I
Yep.
can't, those type of things.
Yeah. So, like for me, when I was diagnosed, I was in high school, and honestly, a lot of the people that I went to high school with don't know I had celiac because at that point in my life, I was not ready to tell people. Um, so, unless they found me this way, or they wouldn't know. Um, and so, I totally
Interesting.
understand that. Yeah, that phase of life. It's just it's so hard for kids to tell things, and to advocate for themselves and explain what it is and explain that it doesn't necessarily make you that different. It I work with a lot of like like elementary school, and
Uh,
they need to be able to tell an adult who like that's scary to them, or a stranger, that I have celiac and no, I can't eat this cookie. And even though the adult's going to tell them it's fine, it's just one cookie, like you need to advocate like no, I can't, I have celiac, um, and it'll make me really sick. So I think starting from whenever you were diagnosed, realizing that it's not something to be ashamed of, or really anything that makes you that much different in a lot of ways. Like some people, they're like, I don't eat chocolate because I don't like it. You know, people have their food preferences. Everyone has something. For us, like it's gluten. So
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think that's so important to empower, whatever age someone is at, whether that's a 10-year-old that has to learn really early what it means to advocate for themselves, or if it is somebody that's in their teenage years, all the way up to adults who are very submissive and not used to doing that. Like that's a common theme of everyone I talk to. And it, for me, like I say, that's a common theme of life, of
yeah,
not just celiac, but everything, right? Like no one is going to care about your life the way that you do. It's
yeah,
just facts. And so you
right,
have to learn how to advocate for yourself. And I look at it as a blessing of like, look at this great opportunity you have to stand up for yourself and learn things that are not going to just benefit you with this disease, but in life, like in
yeah,
every area.
yeah, absolutely. I think as in the beginning when you're first diagnosed, there's so much to process and so much to think about. It can be really hard to advocate for yourself. But
Yes.
as time allows, and with practice and with positive experiences, that's what really helps. So I think just overall, with more people understanding food allergies in general and the need for people to follow specific diets for health, I think people are getting less resistance when they do say that they need help. But it's definitely overwhelming at first. I think that's the number one word that I hear people, my newly diagnosed clients. They're always saying like, I'm overwhelmed. Like, where do I start? Do I have to learn the food label first? Do I have to learn the exceptions to the rules or cross contamination? It's like a million things
Absolutely. So, with that, somebody just asked if there are labeling laws in the US.
regarding gluten free. Yes, there are. So a few years ago, like somewhat recently, they did pass a law. So to put gluten free on the food label, it has to be under 20 parts per million. Parts per million is just a way of measuring how much gluten is in that food. The reason I picked 20 parts per million is most research is saying that most celiacs can tolerate that amount. Of course, they would want it to be under 20, but that's the threshold limit that they'll allow per batch um, of food item. So, yeah, she's Stephanie who asked that says same as the UK. But there are a few other kind of things that get tricky with it. So, to put gluten free, that means it's under 20 parts per million. There are some people that are more sensitive and will still get sick with that. So, that's why for a lot of people, especially in the beginning, we recommend that they use there's four different labels. They either mean 5 or 10 parts per million. But with those four labels, that means they're a little bit more quality controlled, checked with how much gluten is in could be in a food item. So I usually recommend people look for something that's certified gluten free. The other thing to mention that people really get confused about is the line, it's called the allergen line, where it says has been processed in a facility that contains wheat, or may have been processed on a plant with nuts, whatever. In those cases, that is a voluntary statement. So you might see a package that doesn't have that. That doesn't mean that it wasn't processed in a facility with gluten or wheat. It just means
Mm.
that the company is deciding not to write that. So I look at it as if a company is saying may have been produced in a facility with wheat, they're probably more aware of food allergies and they're covering
Yeah.
their butt just in case. If they don't put that on the food label, it's unlikely that that's even in their mind. So that's something that gets really tricky. And if it says, processed in a facility with wheat, well, if you think of like the Chex, like Kellogg's, if you're making Chex and it's rice Chex, which are gluten free, that's tested, certified by the Celiac Association, they're producing so much Chex, it's probably just on one belt, right? But if it's something that's like a small mom and pop shop, then it's more likely that they have to share belts and equipment, and then it's more risky. So yeah, that's kind of a
That's
roundabout
really
way of the food label. But there's a lot of interesting things with it for sure.
No, that's really helpful. I don't think people understand that or speak to that very often because people freak out more so with the disclaimer that this
Yeah,
might yeah, so that's really fascinating.
yeah.
I would love to
The
see
other
more
thing,
talked about around
yeah,
that.
yeah, I know it's crazy. And the other thing on the disclaimer is the rule with that disclaimer. The other rule is it really only needs to have the top 8 allergens, which are wheat, nuts, shellfish, tree nuts, fish. So wheat is the only one on there. It doesn't have to list rye or barley. Or
Ah.
so they sometimes they'll add gluten in there, but it doesn't always say gluten. It might just say not produced free of wheat and then the other allergens. It says nothing about rye or barley. So it could be produced with rye or barley. You really don't know. So that's
Interesting.
something else to think about. Some companies will add gluten because now it's considered more of an allergen and a top thing, but legally it only has to be one of the top 8 allergens listed.
Okay, I'm learning things. This is
Yeah,
awesome. Like
fun.
seriously, that's so helpful because, well, this is the thing, right? Like, unless you take it upon yourself to educate yourself thoroughly, like, I mean, it's just like, oh, that says gluten free or that looks gluten free or whatever, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard. It can be super
yeah,
confusing.
yeah. Especially in the beginning, deciding how to read a food label, what are the exceptions, what are, what can I have, what can't I have? Does gluten free really mean gluten free? Um, So someone just said I can't eat wheat, barley, rye, or oats unless it's gluten-free oats. So yeah, wheat, barley, rye are all the gluten-containing grains. Oats are just cross-contaminated a lot, so unless they're certified gluten-free, we definitely don't say that they're gluten-free.
Yes. Okay, somebody asked, what do you think the gluten-free community needs most right now for dining out? Like, what has room for improvement with restaurants and or diners for a better experience?
I think education, just in general, to the staff. So a lot of times, people in a restaurant, they don't understand what celiac is, and they don't understand the severity of food allergies. Food allergies maybe a little bit more, but celiac, I think it's just there's the benefit of people knowing more about gluten free and gluten free needs, but a lot of times servers don't understand that they need to be double and triple sure that something doesn't contain gluten. So they might think like, oh, I know rice is a gluten-free grain, so they'll say the rice pilaf is fine. But they're not thinking of the level of what about the spices in there? Is there maybe some other kind of grain mixed in there, which is really common for like rice pilaf, for example. I think also reminding the servers that it's okay to ask the manager, it's okay to ask the chef. A lot of times, I worked in a restaurant in the back of the house. The managers sometimes don't want to hear it. They don't want to be asked. They want the server to deal with the table. So having more understanding and more communication between the chef, the manager, the table, and then the server, like that all kind of needs to be a dynamic situation. I think a big benefit that we've seen lately is more gluten-free menus, which can just be helpful. I think that there sometimes might be sauces that you think are gluten-free, but they're not on the gluten-free menu, so that's an indicator. Don't order that. I would also say like Yelp is my favorite gluten-free tool, just because I can see the photos. So I can see like I've ordered a I don't know a soup before or a salad, and all the ingredients are fine, but the last minute they'll slap on a piece of bread on top, just as like a decor. And I wouldn't know that unless I looked through the Yelp photos and saw, oh, on every single salad there's a piece of bread on the plate. So that's helpful to me. They also have gluten-free apps like Find Me Gluten Free, where people with celiac and people with non-gluten sensitivity will um, comment and like give tips and stuff for celiacs. Someone
Yeah.
asked what's the name of the tool. The tool I just mentioned is just Yelp, like the Yelp app.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really true. And I think, again, back to the advocating for yourself and also maybe people, especially women, I find, and I'm sure it's the same with you. It's like people automatically feel guilty or bad, which I hate that that's how we're trained, but that's how we're trained to be, right? And so so many people, and I love like dietitians and then also just celiac advocates, there's so much room to work with people, I think, around the social issues that we encounter of dealing with this, especially with dining out. Like I think it was Taylor, the other dietitian that I was talking
Yes.
to, who said she does
Yeah.
mock interviews with clients,
Yes.
which I
Yep.
loved, of like practicing eating out. And, you know, to some that might sound silly, but I thought it was brilliant because I'm like, think about the first few times that you went to dine out, or maybe still like, I talked to
Yeah.
Matt from Wheatless Wanderlust, and he said he didn't eat out almost for like 3 to 5 years because he just was like, it wasn't his thing. He didn't think he could travel, you know, and then now he travels the world. But
Yeah.
it's so much of that anxiety or feeling bad if like I ask too many questions, the kitchen's busy, like you feel like an inconvenience. Like those are very common things that people say.
Yeah. And it's hard too. I think the bigger the group, it's hard because the server, um, the server's trying to remember a lot of things, and you can just feel the server being pulled in multiple directions. So that other people are going to ask questions, and it's like, do I feel like I get to ask 10 questions when I know that the server still has to do a roundabout? So that's like always really tricky. So yeah, I think it's part of working with the kitchen staff and then working with individuals, which I know Taylor and I both do mock interviews with our clients. But also just remembering,
I
like, when you
love
go to a
that.
restaurant,
That's so good.
yeah, so it's been like very eye opening, I think, for the other people, because all I've been to a restaurant a million times, so I know the questions that the servers are going to ask, or maybe we talk about, like, maybe you didn't think about this, like the server said the sauce is fine, but those sauces are really potentially dangerous, so either I recommend saying no sauce or that they double check with the manager, or
Or
the
the
server,
chef.
the chef
Yeah.
too.
I personally feel the most confident when they're like, let me talk to the chef, or they'll bring the chef. And I'm like,
Yeah,
thank you.
perfect. Yeah. Yep, because then you'll see who's cooking the food, which is really good. I saw someone the other day. They posted like a little card that they give to the server to give to the chef. Um,
So it might have been, was it Coral? Is it Coral's
it wasn't Coral's
freebies?
card. She had three
Oh, okay,
cards.
okay. Yeah. I
No,
don't know if I saw
it was
that one then.
something else. Yeah.
Cool.
And it was like, dear chef, like I'm sitting at table blank, and like um, just letting you know I have celiac disease. Like I'm really sensitive to gluten. If you see anything wrong with my dish, like please don't hesitate to ask. I'd rather have be safe than sorry. So I thought that was cool. I think also just when I work with my clients, I remind them that eating out now is going to be a little bit of a different experience. You might not always be able to get what you want. Um, I had one of my clients the other day was so upset because she went out to get tacos with her friends and they only had the hard shell tacos, which were fried in a fryer, and so she knew she couldn't eat that, which was great. That was like a huge win for us, but she was so upset because she had her mind set on eating that taco and she couldn't get it. And just reminding her that you can buy those tacos and you can have them at home another time, but what's more important is getting something that's safe in the restaurant and enjoying the time with the people around you. If you're eating something that you know is going to make you sick, you're probably not going to have a good time. So
Yeah.
yeah, just reminding, there's with celiac and with any food allergies, most things aren't off limits, like as in a never, but it just might not be something that you can get at a restaurant or at a restaurant that time. It might be something that you need to make on your own or go to another restaurant later, but regardless you can always enjoy the time with the people around you.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And it's also okay to have your moments. Like, I, I feel like everyone I've talked to is very positive and sees this disease as something that you can control through diet and is really
Yeah.
great. But it's also okay to be human about it and to have your frustrating moments and to be sad that like you had your heart set on those tacos. Like you can
Yeah,
have a
I know.
moment where you're sad about it. It's like just don't let it ruin your whole day. but it's
Right.
okay to feel that way too. Like I think too often we shift over the emotions where it's like, no, there's a lot in between, like where you are now and where you want to end up, but
Right.
allowing yourself that space in between.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there was something else I wanted to add. I don't remember, but yeah, having oh, I remember. I think when you have those moments of frustration in a restaurant too, and there is sadness, and it's not always like the best experience. I think a lot of us we're good at being positive about it and like sharing
Yeah.
tips and making it as clear as possible. But I've definitely had moments where I'm like almost in tears, and just whoever I'm with, I'm like, you need to deal with the server. I can't even like,
Yes.
and that's okay too. And luckily, the people that I'm usually out eating with, my mom, my dad, my friends, they all understand and they can let me like take a moment. I usually go to the bathroom and just like breathe if I know I'm glutened or my dish came out wrong or I just don't have the energy. Sometimes when you're traveling and your brain is like fried and to have to look at a menu, like that's hard.
Yes. And that's really important. Priyanka and I talked about that. It's like, it's okay. You're advocating for yourself all day long, every day. It's okay to rely on those people, right? In those
Yeah.
moments. Like, because we all get to that point. Agreed, especially when traveling. Like, you're planning logistics, especially like I know my brain can get to that place. Like, because I travel in places where I don't speak the language. And so, it's just a lot for your brain. Like, okay, I've already been, figuring out my accommodations for the day and this for the day. And then you just want to eat and you're starving and you're like, oh, there's nothing to eat or I don't know how to
Nothing.
communicate.
Yes. Yeah. It's tough. So yeah, I think just having like a little bit of grace within yourself when you approach restaurants and understand that there's gonna be some really high points, there'll probably be some low points. Advocate for yourself. Ask to talk to the manager. Ask to talk to the chef. Make sure the people around you understand why you're asking a bunch of questions, and they can kind of chime in if you're just, "Ugh," you know.
Yes, agreed. So, okay, so I'm trying to think. There were other couple of questions. We've hit on most of them that people asked, but oh, and I saw Taylor joined. So,
Yeah.
um, so the other question that I thought was maybe helpful to talk about was around like meal prep and cooking and what you do with clients around, what kind of diet to adhere to beyond maybe just gluten free.
Yeah. So, at the beginning of a diagnosis, a lot of times, depending on like how much damage their gut had, how long they were having symptoms, if there's any other like autoimmune conditions or IBS, IBD going on, addressing other foods that could be also causing inflammation or issues. So a lot of times we'll do an elimination diet. The most problematic foods are definitely dairy and soy. If the individual doesn't want to do a full elimination diet, we just start with taking out dairy and soy and seeing how they're doing. A lot of times that just can reduce the inflammation. Those are known to be hard to digest. So if your guts are already feeling yucky, taking those out helps. Not forever necessarily, but at least in the temporary. Other things to look at would be like legumes, also corn and oats. People seem to have trouble with. The protein in those is similar to gluten, so even though they're gluten-free grain, some people have issues with those. So those are some things that we might remove. As far as someone asked, I thought dairy and soy was gluten free. Yes, dairy and soy are gluten free. Most of those sources are. However, sometimes those will still cause gut pain, just even in people without celiac. They're just known to be pro-inflammatory. So removing those from the diet allows the gut to heal a little bit better, allows for better digestion, and can just help people feel better in general. Some people have like a lactose intolerance that they're not aware of, so removing dairy can help with that, a casein intolerance, etc. Um, so we kind of start with that. And then for meal prep, I always just keep it simple. I'm not a big cook, I'll be honest. I don't cook up great gluten-free things. So what I do is I recommend people pick, hi Christina, I recommend people pick like two gluten-free grains or kind of gluten-free product. So quinoa, brown rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, like a gluten-free pasta. Cook a big batch of those, have it in the fridge for the week. One or two protein sources. So that could be something like eggs, meat, fish. having that also on hand, cooking both of those really simple to start. And then I like pre-chop some veggies and fruits and stuff for kids to have on hand. Then when mealtime comes, you just pick a grain, a meat, and a vegetable and throw them together. So you can kind of mix and match throughout the week, and then the next week you would rotate through and cook a different starch and a different protein. That helps kind of keep a variety with things, but also do the bulk of your cooking at one time. And it's pretty simple. If you have like a family, you can, put different sauces on it depending, salsa, barbecue sauce that's gluten-free, ketchup, mustard, any like gluten-free dressing to kind of change up what you're eating, but it's the same food but tastes different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. No,
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful because I think people just get overwhelmed and it's like, okay, when you can just break it down into manageable
Mm-hmm.
steps, like anything, right? Like that's always how it is. It's like, okay, great, here's the big picture, but how do we put this into digestible little parts that you can start
Yeah.
today? Like,
Right. Right. Let's cook potatoes for the week and use that as your new grain. Because sometimes people too, they have problems if they just switch from what they were eating to just a bunch of gluten processed things. We always talk about cleaning up the kitchen and then going to the store and replacing, your old products with gluten-free products. So then they're just filling up with, they find gluten-free chicken nuggets and gluten-free pizza and pie and cake and all those things, and someone newly diagnosed, those are all new exciting products to them, so they buy them all. We
yeah,
realize like there will always be gluten-free cake at the store. Like you can go get that for your birthday and special occasions, but you don't need it right now. So I
true.
think some people, they think that gluten-free stuff's limited for some reason, so they tend to stock up on that stuff. So I always just recommend keep it simple.
I love that. Yeah. For me, it's always the helpful tip of just like shop the perimeter of the grocery store, like I think that that's just a tried and true fact. Like, and I found it to be very true in almost every country I go to. Like, that's true of where to
Yeah.
buy the naturally gluten-free food.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
So that's kind of my recommendation for keeping it easy, having stuff on hand, especially when, you might be running out the door and so you want to pack something. Having pre-made stuff can be really helpful because a lot of people say they get in a jam and then, you know, they end up having to stop at fast food or having to eat out or eating granola bar in your car, which I've done a million times. But
yep.
it's nice to have like a meal ready for you.
Agreed. So what else do you want people to know? Anything?
You can find me at the Celiac Space. My inbox is always open. I love just meeting new people and kind of hearing about your journey. Any tips that you want to share? I'm always still learning. I think we both are. And kind of just engaging. I'm really trying to create a community with people through education and tips and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then I have to ask because I haven't even asked you, are you a moderator or an admin of one of the Facebook groups?
No.
That
Mm.
no, that was just your post that they highlighted in whichever gluten-free Facebook group that you're
Oh,
like pinned to the top.
yes. Yeah, so there's a few different online celiac support groups, and I'm in there just like I don't know, seeing like what's going on in the celiac world,
Yeah.
and a lot of people tend to be negative in there, or the people are just like frustrated, and that's where they let out their frustrations, or there's tips kind of like all over the place, and so one of the things that I posted about was like some tips for eating out. So that was like pinned to the top of the page.
I loved it. I meant to
Yeah.
message you because I actually got kicked out of a group the other day and I was like,
Really?
and
Why?
yeah, I mean, I could literally, I honestly, I've had to like let it go because I didn't get a message. I didn't get a warning. I just got blocked and kicked out. And I was so sad because I was literally
Yeah.
I was just wearing a celiac shirt, which is, I mean, I know Meredith of Celiac Cutie, but I put in the
Yeah.
post, like, this is not an affiliation with this company. I just love the shirt. Happy Celiac Awareness Month. I was sharing nothing else and they blocked
Yeah.
me. Um, I don't know if they
Yeah.
just
I've
have a
seen a
thing
lot of.
against like bloggers or what, but I'm like, I genuinely want to help people and I wasn't promoting a thing.
it's a fine line because I think obviously you weren't, but I've also seen people with like they're promoting Herbalife in there and they're like, I'm just trying to help people. I'm just trying to sell them my product because it's gluten free, you know. So I think that's where they're like they have to like draw the line, but that's so sad. They
It
should
made me
be
really
able.
sad.
Yeah.
Anyways, because I didn't get a warning, I just literally got blocked, and like 100 people liked the photo within minutes, and people were like, "Where
Yeah.
did you get that shirt?" And I was just like, "It's Celiac Cutie." Like literally, I bought the T-shirt. I get no kickback,
Yeah.
nothing. So, anyways, so strange, but I was happy to see your post in that community because, well, because it is that fine line. Sometimes you don't know if they're going to like be okay with that kind of stuff because there's also so much fear of people like selling, which I'm like, which is a
That's
story
yeah.
for another day. But I'm like, if you have something that you're passionate about that happens to be your job, that's not a bad thing. Like, I don't know why we're so afraid of that.
No. Yeah.
You know,
It's
I mean, you're
it's
somebody
tricky.
who is like, you love your job and you happen to have celiac disease and you have a great resource in yourself
Yeah.
along with your training, right? Like, that's a
Right.
unique combination. Like, same with Taylor. Like, you guys both have unique perspectives, which I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. So it's it's definitely fun to talk to people and hopefully, you know, share some like positivity and correct information and just like give people resources that they wouldn't have access to otherwise is ultimately my goal. So
Agreed. I love that. Okay. People, oh, they're so nice. Okay. Tell us one more time where people can find you.
the celiac space underscore the underscore celiac underscore space. And I'm
Awesome.
Erin.
All right. Erin, this was so fun. Thank you for
So
joining me.
fun.
Thanks
Thank you for
everyone for
chatting.
watching. And I'll
Bye.
talk to you soon.